everybody, I believe that we are indeed live, at least it says so on my YouTube back end. And I almost made the whole sentence without saying that time. I am very, very proud of myself for that. We need the music. I need to put that on. Let's see. There we go. We're going with Saving the World by Aaron Kenny, one of YouTube's finest in their audio library. Okay, so we're back with actual working internet this time around. Yes, I know it is wonderful, so I believe that we can have a full stream this time today of revising Fly, my third short story. So, and of course, like I mentioned yesterday, I don't know why I say of course, we only started doing yesterday. I'm very much aware of the fact that I keep saying between every sentence. So I am trying to remedy that. So I'm sorry if some of this is going to sound a bit awkward. That is me trying to phase out the It looks to be my green screen. Can't really see if it's working or not the way I want to. This. Okay, I think it's fine. Yeah, I think it's fine. I think it's fine. We're fine. We're good. This is where we came to. Stopped. This is where we left it last time. That's what I wanted to say. We left it here because internet was so bad that it was hardly a live stream, to be honest. And why don't we keep on going? So I think this was the last thing we actually did. This was the last thing we did. What's it called? We did revise yesterday, wasn't it? Anyway, let's take it from there. Let's take it from here. Maybe we can revise it. See if that works or not. The brood carer made sure that the heat of the kiln was set exactly right, pushed the egg back into the flames, and walked over to where the source of the weird noise was coming from, her makeshift terrarium. The glass cage was standing next to the big windows, currently enjoying the heat of the kilns, winning the battle against the cool breeze of the late autumn evening. I like that. I like that sentence. Currently winning the battle against the autumn breeze. Pat myself on the back for that one. And then the weird noises here. This is supposed to be like because apparently that's the way geckos sound. And since you guys have been following me along for a while now, of course, you know that it is a gecko. A flip gecko. Yeah. That is the one making the noise. I don't know if you could hear that at all. There we go. Clack, 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 clack. As Rusu peered into the glass cage, a demanding flit gecko was impatiently looking back at her. It hadn't even been a moon phase since his sister had brought the 3 tiny eggs, a feat Rusu was still unsure how such a large dragon had managed to do. And up until yesterday, they had all been lying comfortably in the terrarium's warm dirt. That's a long sentence. That's a very long sentence. It hadn't even been a moon phase since her sister had brought the 3 tiny eggs. A feat Rusu was still unsure of how such a large dragon had managed to do. First of all, I think we can lose to do. How such a large dragon had managed. And up until yesterday, they had all been lying comfortably in the terrarium's warm dirt. I guess that's alright. This is, of course, an interposed sentence. Up until yesterday, they had all been lying comfortably in the terrarium's warm dirt. Now there were 2 eggs, a cracked shell, and what looked to be an almost fully grown lizard. I feel like there's a little bit of a disconnect here. It haven't even been a moon phase since it had brought 3 tiny eggs. Now there were 2 eggs. Now there were only 2 eggs, right? That fixes it. It's just, I feel like there was a disconnect between the 3 tiny eggs and 2. Now there were only 2 eggs, a cracked shell, and what looked to be an almost fully grown lizard. You are a quick one, are you not? Well, besides the fact that you missed your season, Burusu inquired as she gently lifted up the gecko. As she gently lifted the gecko up. So I just read it differently when I first glanced at it. That's probably an indicator that something needs to be changed. Actually, I forgot to close the drapes on one of my windows. I don't know if that affects anything in my... Nah, my lighting green screen setup is so bad it doesn't fix and change anything, I think. Cheers, guys. Forgot to say good morning with my ordinarily average sized cup. It is, of course, me who is tiny. Well, besides the fact that you missed your season, Burusu inquired as she gently lifted the gecko up. As she gently lifted up the gecko. I feel like one of these is Danish word order. And I don't know which one. So if I do this, Burusu inquired as she gently lifted up the gecko to get a better look. I need to make sure something. Sorry about this. I'm going to test the microphone. Okay, sorry. I should have tested this before. It's just, it looks like my Wave microphone Streamlink. It looks like it's picking up sounds when there's nothing, when I'm not talking. And it's not supposed to do that. Hopefully the music masks it. Okay. Besides the fact that you missed your season, Burusu inquired as she gently lifted up the gecko to get a better look. That sounds better, doesn't it? I think so. It's a very small change, but I think it sounds better. This wasn't the first time that the brood carer had hatched geckos, but this was one of the much larger ones. But this one was much larger than a normal hatchling. How did you grow up so fast? Fascinating. This wasn't the first time that the brood carer had hatched geckos. But this one was much larger than a normal hatchling. But this particular one. Particular one was much larger than a normal hatchling. How did you grow up so fast? Fascinating. Okay, let's check the Danish version. No, that. It was mostly the particular one. That I needed to. You know what? I'm just gonna comment here, saying this particular particular one. Yeah. Just so I know that when we go to the what's it called? When I go to revise the Danish version, I need to make sure that we're saying that specific one or that particular one in Danish as well. And I know I mentioned that I'm trying to phase out myself saying all the time, but I can feel it creeping in that I'm going to say what's it called a lot. So bear with me on that one. It is a process, of course, we're doing. Let's continue. The flit gecko stretched its wings as it sat in the dragon's hands, first by grabbing its left wing using its corresponding front foot toes and extending the webbed wings from the gecko's stomach, and then it did the same with the right one. The flit gecko stretched its wings as it sat there in the dragon's hands, first by grabbing its left wing using its corresponding front foot toes and extending the webbed skin from the gecko's stomach. And then it did the same with the right one. I think this needs to be an interposed sentence. Ooh, big stretch, Boruto said with a cuteness that always surfaced when she was talking to an animal. She could feel herself getting excited at the prospect of having a bunch of flit geckos running around soon. I shall name you Flit. The gecko looked at her and turned its head on its side, making its strange feathery head appendages wobble a bit. The gecko looked at her and turned its head to the side. On the side. To the side? Or on the side? I don't know. This is a small detail, and of course we can always go back and change it. It turned its head to the side. It turned its head on the side. I think I want to say to. To or on the side. All right. Okay. That didn't help me a bit. I didn't really, for my scanning, I didn't find what I was looking for. The gecko looked at her, turned its head to the side. I think it's on the side. Turn his head sideways. Right? Sideways. Yeah. Sideways. Sideways it is. Turned its head not on the sideways. Turned its head sideways, making its strange feathery head appendages. I could say it before. The gecko looked at her and turned its head sideways, making its strange feathery head appendages wobble a bit. What? Do you not like it? Boruso asked the small creature with the even smaller cloudy scales. I will grant you that it may not be my most creative work, but I think it fits. Look, your siblings are still lying all cozy in their eggs. But I think it fits. Look, your siblings are still lying all cozy in their eggs. Boruso looked down into the terrarium. And back at the gecko in her hands. I just stopped being able to articulate, to read. Boruso looked down into the terrarium and back at the gecko in her hands. Flit moved its head with her. Flit moved its head with her. See, whenever I need to make the audiobook recording, this is basically what I'm working with. The stories are long enough as they are, and then you have me just messing up over and over and over again as I'm reading this. So it takes so long to edit afterwards. Yeah, let's move on. Boruso looked down into the terrarium and back at the gecko in her hands. Flit moved its head with her down into the small made-up forest floor and back to the drake holding it. No, not to the drake. Boruso is a drake. And back to the drake holding it. And then it sneezed. Oh, I wish you well, Boruso answered. The little flit gecko nodded at her, as if saying a wordless thank you, turned around, leapt to the nearest window sill and straight out of the nearest big window. We have nearest twice here. So it leapt to the nearest window sill and straight out of the nearest big window. I feel like that was almost intentional by... It's almost intentional bypassed me. But at the same time, I do not like... repeat words like this. But again, it could be intentional. Like, I just wanted to almost make an alliteration. But it's not an alliteration. No, it's just repeat word. Okay, so what could we say instead? Leapt to the nearest windowsill and straight out. And straight out the big windows. I mean, it doesn't have to be more difficult. Keep it simple, stupid, right? Let me just check the Danish version. They are still cozying up in their eggs. Ooh, I wish you well. Okay, so in the Danish version here, we just said it jumped down to the windowsill and directly through the nearest big window. Here we say leapt to the nearest windowsill. You know, I'm gonna go and it leapt onto the windowsill and straight out of the nearest big window. See, that's what I mean about... What did I do here? That's what I mean about the whole translating something into Danish. It actually helps me figure out sometimes a better way of writing it in English. And I like that. I really like that. Okay. It all went quite fast, and a sudden panic came rushing over Rusu as she clumsily, and without any success, tried to catch the quick lizard before it was out of reach. I feel like I have a lot of phlegm in my nose today. I'm sorry. I don't really know why. Hopefully I'm not getting a cold. That would suck. It all went quite fast, and a sudden panic came rushing over Rusu as she clumsily, and without any success, tried to catch the quick lizard before it was out of reach. "Flit!" she shouted as she leaned out the "Flit!" she shouted as she leaned out of the window. Okay, there's missing a word here. She shouted as she leaned out of the window as was possible. She leaned as far out. She shouted as she leaned as far out of the window as possible. There's a lot of ass here. No, not those kinds. She shouted as she leaned as far out of the window as possible. Could say and leaned. And lean as far out of the window as possible. Only to see the gecko. The gecko grabbing and spreading its wings, and expertly starting its descent into the dimly lit evening. "Oh, I do wish you well," the dragon said to no one but herself. Vurusu felt a tinge of sadness and a little bit of disappointment as she scouted for the tiny winged being who was all but gone now. She could only eye one of the enormous iron chains that kept wing rests and, by extension, the other dragon roosts from floating away. Vurusu made a small jump when she remembered that she needed to write it all down. Quickly fetching an ornate candle holder, resembling three worm tails twirling around each other and holding it close to... That's a long sentence. Quickly fetching an ornate candle holder, resembling three worm tails twirling around each other and holding a close to burned out candle, Vurusu lit the wick with a fire blossom and placed the holder on the windowsill. She then skillfully detached her newest notebook and inkpot from her belt, like she had done so many times before, placed it next to the candlelight, and opened up the book. She then skillfully detached her newest notebook and inkpot from her belt, like she had done so many times before, placed it next to the candlelight, and opened up the book. Yeah, I don't know why. I just feel like there was something weird with that big paragraph. But the more I read it, the less I thought something was actually weird about it. Which I guess is good. I think, maybe. She stared at the blank pages while dipping her claw in ink. Extended claw. extended claw. Because of course, drakes don't have their claws out at all time. They can extend and pull them back in at will. And look at this, we've had almost half an hour with no internet issues. Let's go! Oh. She stared at the blank page. Oops. She stared at the blank pages while dipping her extended claw in ink. An extended claw. And an extended claw in ink. I need to make sure it says that here. Dyppet en af sine udstrakte klør i blækhuset. There we go. Oh, that was not what we wanted. There we go. Getting started was always the hardest part, but Rurusu also knew that once she got going, it was difficult to stop. Her bookcase filled to the brim with used notebooks was a testament to that. Pondering over where to begin, the yellow... By the way, I feel this is a paragraph that was... that I wrote for myself. It was like... I think... And I hope a lot of other writers feel the same. But sometimes it can be really, really difficult to get started on writing something, anything really. But once you get going, it's, yeah, like it says here, it's difficult to stop. So that was very much getting my own experience down onto the page. I thought that was kind of funny to do. Pondering over where to begin, the yellow-scaled dragon leaned on her elbows while picking her sharp teeth with the extended claw. See, we already said that it was extended now, so we don't have to say it here. And let's just change it here, skriveklon. Pondering over where to begin, the yellow-scaled dragon leaned on her elbows while picking her sharp teeth with a claw intended for writing. Her teeth got a little smudged with ink, but Rurusu didn't give it much thought. She was staring into the nascent night and couldn't help but feel that familiar longing. While she wasn't sure what exactly it was that she longed for, Rurusu just knew it was something more. Something more than what was on the dragon roosts. Something more than what was on the dragon roost that she had already explored so many times, especially Wingrest, which was the largest island of the five by far. Something more than what was on the dragon roost that she had already explored so many times, especially Wingrest, which was the largest of the islands Something's wrong with the sentence. Is it too long? Rurusu just knew she wanted... While she wasn't sure exactly what it was she longed for, Rurusu just knew it was something more. Something more than what was on the dragon roost that she had already explored so many times. I feel like we can have a full stop here. Especially Wingrest, which was the largest island of the five by far. Which was by far the largest island of the five. We could say keep the something more going here. Something more than what was on the dragon roost that she had already explored so many times. Something more other than wing rest. In particular, which was by far the largest of the 5. Something more than what was on wing rests in particular. While we're listening to a Stranger Things inspired song. Ba 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 ba. Ba 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 ba. Ba 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 ba. Ba ba ba. Why is it so difficult? Something more than wing rest in particular. Which was by far the largest island of the 5. I think that can make sense, right? While she wasn't sure what exactly it was that she longed for, Varuso just knew it was something more. Something more than what was on the dragon roost that she had already explored so many times. Something more than wing rest in particular, which was by far the largest island of the 5. Yeah, I'm happy with that. I'm really happy with that. And I am going to make a comment here. Check the rephrasing on English version. English version. There we go. It wasn't that the others weren't interesting. Should we say the other roosts to drive home the fact that they are called dragon roosts? To that end, I was just thinking, so I have been, as I have translated it to Danish, I have been thinking about changing dragon roosts in English to dragon nests. Given that in Danish we are actually calling them dragon nests. Danish. And a roost. So a roost can be like a stick. Roost. Okay. I was thinking that, like, yeah, a branch of a tree where birds rest or sleep. At the close of day, the birds fly to its roosts. probably alright then. Let's not think about it. Just saying that I might change it sometime. Maybe before we need to publish this in 1 week. That's right. Fly is coming out before next Tuesday evening. Before next Tuesday evening. It has to. I promised people that it would. And I am gonna stick with that promise. Stick to that promise. It wasn't that the others weren't interesting. Skyreach had the tallest and most mountains. I feel like that should be changed. Skyreach had the most and tallest mountains. It's a small change, but I think it makes sense. Skyreach had the most and tallest mountains, and Baruso always loved to go climbing there. It could be a dangerous activity for someone whose works did. It could be a dangerous activity for someone whose wings didn't work, though. Okay, a couple of different problems here. I feel like we should say it could be a dangerous activity, though, for someone whose wings didn't work. So we need like a though or a however, but we have a however here. And on top of that, it says dangerous and it says dangerous. So we got our work cut out for us here in this paragraph. Do we need the thesaurus here for dangerous? Could be a good idea. Could be a very good idea. We also write it 2 times in a row somewhere. Oh. It wasn't that I like how I caught that we write it twice and not dangerous twice. It wasn't that the others weren't interesting. Skyreach had the most and tallest mountains, and Maruso always loved to go climbing there. It could be dangerous. It could be a dangerous activity for someone whose wings didn't work, though. Okay, let's put ourselves together and figure something out. All this talking makes me thirsty. Good thing I still have to talk for 2 hours, right? Let's focus on one thing at a time. My mind is sort of trying to focus on all 3 at once. That's not working. let's focus on the it, because I just realized, I just figured out something that could work. Traversing. Traversing. What's a mountain? Thesaurus. Mountain. Very large hill. Traversing the peaks. Yes. Traversing the peaks. Could be a dangerous activity though. Interpose that for someone whose wings didn't work. But Boruso had successfully developed quick reflexes. And when things got precarious, what is this? This is not remotely fantasy. Radio flyer. Sorry, dude, you gotta go. Boop. Traversing the peaks could be a dangerous activity, though, for someone. Okay, so we lost, especially up here. I feel like we could add it down here, especially for someone whose wings didn't work. But Boruso had successfully developed quick reflexes, and when things got dangerous, got peculiar, got not peculiar, hazardous, got troubling, got alarming, perilous. That was the word I was looking for. Perilous. Got perilous. My Chromebook is not happy with Thesaurus. There's a lot of ads in it. Perilous. Oh, that's a good word. That's a great word. Got perilous. Or we could switch them up and say traversing the peaks could be a perilous activity though. And when things got dangerous. I don't know, I feel like those two sort of, well, besides meaning the same thing, I feel like they fit better there. I think this is something that needs to be changed as well. Yeah. I'm just gonna check rephrasing. Rephrasing on English version. That's 2 paragraphs in a row where we need to check the rephrasing of the English version. Alright. But Boruso had successfully developed quick reflexes, and when things got dangerous, she had yet to make a fall that she couldn't recover from. Yeah. I think I want here, the reason why I say perilous here and dangerous here is that this is a callback. Not a callback, but this is where it's established that Boruso have quick reflexes in dangerous situations. And then when Sunyaden is attacking her, he is very fast. He's insanely fast. He is unbelievably fast. When he's attacking her with his wind abilities. Like, there's a reason why she can dodge him. And that is established here. Oh, sorry. And that's what is established here. And so I want quick reflexes and dangerous. Those words to be close together. Maybe it's probably a very small thing that no one is going to look at it and remember. But I thought about it, and we need to think about such things. Of the other dragon roosts, Cloud Lake housed the biggest reservoir of water, as its name suggested, though she always thought it best to visit in the summer when the lake wasn't as cold, and Free Landing had so much history. Vurusu followed the magnificent chain from wing rest up to High Roost, quietly floating above. Vurusu followed the magnificent chain from wing rest up to High Roost, quietly floating above. It had been years since she last visited the Emerald Kin. High Roost might be the smallest of the dragon roosts, but its altitude meant the flora and fauna was one of a kind. And it would be nice once again to see some other flowers beside the dominating orange fire blossoms. She could probably go there after the final phase of a current clutch. There would be enough time before the next brood carer call. I am thinking about this sentence. So, fire blossoms are... They're dominating on wing rest. They might be dominating on all of the... They might be dominating on all of the dragon roosts, on all of the floating dragon roosts, floating islands. Except for, of course, High Roost, which has its own one-of-a-kind fauna and flora. I do like that the dragon roosts have this orange shine to them if you look at them, because the flowers are mostly fire blossoms. But another one is we are in the autumn right now in the story, and we're in the autumn right now. And in my head, this is of course my universe, so my head is canon. In my head, we are in a southern European world. Not world, but the dragon roosts are in a southern European area. Temperate, subtropical climate, I believe would be the word. And those autumns, they do get colder, but they don't snow. They don't, well, except for down in the valleys, we come to in a bit. It's just that if the flowers are blooming all year round, that's what I'm trying to articulate, trying to say. Southern Europe, flowers bloom all year round. The warm Mediterranean climate encourages flowers almost all year round, but never is the scene finer than May-April. Okay, that's all I need. I have no idea if exodustravel.com is a good website or not, but I just need someone to say that it is actually blossoming all year round. Okay, it would be nice to see some other flowers besides the still dominating orange flowers. And that definitely needs to be changed in the Danish one, I think. Der er nogle andre blomster, end de stadigvæk. But is it enough? Is it enough to say that these flowers are dominating, even though it's in autumn? Even though it's in autumn. Is it enough? Is it enough? That's what I'm asking. Because we could have an interposed sentence that spelled it out. Besides, it's still dominating, even in autumn, orange fire blossoms. Or it's still dominating orange fire blossoms, even though autumn had reduced their numbers. Even though the cooler autumn had reduced their numbers. And it would be nice once again to see some other flowers besides the still dominating orange fire blossoms, even though the cooler autumn temperatures. Is there a... I feel like temperatures is a bit too scientific. Climate. Even though the cooler autumn temperatures had reduced their numbers. I'm also worried that we don't make this sentence too long and weird. Had reduced their numbers. I think we definitely need a... I don't know why, but I feel like we need a comma there, so I'm going to put a comma there. Even though the cooler autumn temperatures had reduced their numbers. Let's go to the Danish one. It's orange ildflor. Selvom det køligere efterårsvejr havde reduceret Dares and Tell. That is basically a one-to-one basically a one-to-one translation. Though I did say autumn weather instead of temperatures. Even though the cooler autumn weather. It's fine, it's fine. There would be enough time before the next Broodcarer call. She could probably go there after the final phase of her current clutch. There would be enough time before the next Broodcarer call. Okay, that was a long time. That was a long time spent on world building, but I mean that is indeed what these stories are about. They are about building the worlds and making them make sense and sound cool. And what's cooler than orange flowers during autumn? Anyway, but Vurusu was certain that the world beneath the island had so much more to offer. In fact, she knew it did from all the different accounts of dragons, much more daring than her. She used to love sitting in the hot, humming baths, reading about trees as large as mountains, elf-like horse beings that could bring lightning on demand, stout dwarves with the ability to form iron like no one else, and so much more. Back when she was a young drake, Vurusu often dreamt of the things that she herself would discover and catalog, and bring back to the roost one day. Back when she was a young drake, Vurusu often dreamt of the things that she herself would discover and catalog, and bring back to the roosts one day. Things were different now, however. Vurusu had been nominated for broodcaring by her old learner, and a call as prestigious as that was not something to be turned down. The Queen Mothers, the only ones capable of carrying on the lines of dragons, trusted only broodcarers with their precious glass-like and scaly eggs, and the task of bringing forth life. Even if the broodcarers collectively failed the difficult process to procure living drake and Vyum whelplings most of the time. Right, okay. There was some weird way I've read that. The Queen Mothers, the only ones capable of carrying on the lines of dragons, trusted only broodcarers with their precious glass-like and scaly eggs, and the task of bringing forth life. Even if the broodcarers collectively failed the difficult process to procure living drake and Vyum whelplings most of the time. That sentence feels like it just ends where it shouldn't. Why does it do that? I feel like it's the beginning of it. So when I say even if the broodcarers collectively fails, it sounds like we're going to end the sentence with a even if they failed, but they still did something else, right? Maybe it's better to say like trouble was. The trouble was that the brute care was collectively failed. The process to procure living in weird whelplings most of the time, though. But that requires a though or a however, and I feel like we use those words, those phrasings a lot. A lot. A lot. Okay. Let's just jot something down. Even if the brute carries collectively. Trouble was, however. How much do we say, however? Oh, no. No. Things are different now, however. Trouble was, however. With all that said, however. God damn it. Okay, that's a pretty funny... That was a pretty funny realization, especially because we haven't used it at all before this point. Wow, that's wild. I think we have used though. I know that though. Oh, we're using though down there as well. Even though, whoa. Okay, that's thought, that doesn't count. Oof. That's I'm not happy. I'm not super happy with that. To the thesaurus, though, adverb is nevertheless, still, and however. Looks like we're going though hunting. 62 those. Well, we also had, it's also thought, but. Oh, wait. Oh no! My Chromebook is being dumb. Yes, hello. It should come back. It did. That's yes. There we go. That was a little comment that didn't need to be there at all. Okay, we're going though hunting, and then we're going however hunting. It's been 50 years since Varusu's club major learned to utilize the wings. But she... We can definitely use nevertheless here. Nevertheless. She never took to it. You know what? I think we need to be a comment here because I can't bother with this right now. Go though hunting. Go though hunting when re-revising. Not thought hunting, though hunting. Okay. And then we had however. Things were different now, however. Trouble was, however. With all that said, however. I think I fell into the trap of when I was writing it. I was because I know that I am very aware that I use however a lot. And then I corrected that by saying though instead. And I just kept repeating though. Well, that's what revision is for. That's why we don't just publish it. That's why we revise it as well. Before publishing. Okay. So there are some howevers here that we need to be aware of. And look! They're not here. There's those three howevers are all here, and then 10 more somewhere down the line. What on earth is going on? Okay. Things were different now, however. Baruso had been nominated for brood carrying. We could say though, things were different now though. No, I think it's fine that it's however. Because things were different now. She dreamt of going into the world, discovering, exploring, cataloging everything. But things were different now. We could say but things were different now. But then we start 2 paragraphs with but. We don't want that. Why did the music stop? Oh, it didn't. It's just a very low song, low volume song. Things are different now, on the other hand. Or maybe we should have trouble was. On the other hand, trouble was that brood carers collectively failed. A big if was that brood carers collectively fails now. maybe on the other hand works there. Trouble was, on the other hand, trouble was that brood carriers collectively failed the difficult process to procure living drakes and murum whelplings most of the time. Yeah, I think that's better. Because the queen mothers, the only ones capable of carrying on the lines of dragons, trusted only brood carriers. On the other hand, the brood carriers sucked at procuring. Yeah. I am still not a fan of, however, twice. We could have another nevertheless. Nevertheless. So that's not until page 11. With all that said, you know what I like? Because I like the with all that said. So I am going to say nevertheless things were different now up here. No, they were. Okay, I'm pretty sure there's no audio right now. This is supposed to be 9 minutes long, but I can't hear anything. Right. Okay, let's read. Back when she was a young drake, Boruso often dreamt of the things that she herself would discover and catalog and bring back to the roost one day. Nevertheless, things are different now. Boruso had been nominated for brood carrying by her old learner, and a call as prestigious as that was not something to be turned down. The Queen Mothers, the only ones capable of carrying on the lines of dragons, trusted only brood carriers with their precious glass-like and scaly eggs, and the task of bringing forth life. On the other hand, trouble was that brood carriers collectively failed the difficult process to procure living drake and murum whelplings most of the time. Boruso's feeling with the incubation process was still exceptional, though. She had already successfully brought more whelplings to the world than what could be hoped of someone so new to the call. The Topaz kin definitely needed her, and so she couldn't just walk away if she wanted to. Maybe I don't like on the other hand here. And I don't like it because it sounds like we're arguing. Sounds like we're having an argument. Could say the only trouble was that brood carriers. No. I might have something that means we're going full circle. But I think it works. If I'm not mistaken, we started this out by saying even if brood carriers collectively failed, and then I said, but it needed something to end the to end the sentence with, even if blah blah blah, people still trusted them. That's basically what I think. What I think needs to happen most of the time. Their station was highly regarded. I think we say station multiple times during this the story. Even if brood carriers collectively failed the difficult process to procure living drake and real whelplings most of the time, the station was still highly regarded. Still highly. I need to make sure that I use the right word, regarded. Yeah, very said. Still highly regarded. I definitely think this needs to be checked up on. Check with rephrasing of English version, Verizon version. There we are. That's probably going to there's going to be a lot of those in the Danish version. At least I got something to do, right? Ugh. Nevertheless, things were different now. Voruso had been nominated for brood carrying by her old learner, and a call as prestigious as that was not something to be turned down. The Queen Mothers, the only ones capable of carrying on the lines of dragons, trusted only brood carriers with their precious glass-like and scaly eggs, and the task of bringing forth life. Even if brood carriers collectively failed the difficult process to procure living drake and whelplings most of the time, the station was still highly regarded. It works. I think it works. I feel like it works. Voruso's feeling for the incubation process was still exceptional though. She had already successfully brought more whelplings to the world than what could be hoped of. Yeah, this is not a good sentence. She had already brought more whelplings to the world than what could be hoped of. Of someone so new to the call. Yeah, I know what I want to say, but that's definitely not the way to say it. The Topazkin definitely needed her, and so she couldn't just walk away if she wanted to. Even if she wanted to. So let's fix that instead of the problem at hand. She had already successfully brought more whelplings to the world than what could be hoped of from someone so new to the call. She had already brought more whelplings to the world than what could be hoped. Than what anyone could hope of from someone so new to the call. Right? That could be alright. Oh, this feels like a very, very easy sentence to fix, and yet here we are, and it sucks. I can't fix it. Than what anyone could hope from maybe that's fine. She had already brought more whelplings to the world than what anyone could hope from someone so new to the call. From one so new to the call. We don't need to have someone. Hope from one so new to the call. I don't know if you guys could hear that. I believe that's my dad doing stuff. I'm terribly sorry about that, but it's probably going to happen now because he is renovating a room. Okay. The Topazkin definitely needed her, and so she couldn't just walk away even if she wanted to. I think the paragraph is ready. I think the paragraph is good. Nevertheless, things were different now. Furusu had been nominated for brood carrying by her old learner, and a call as prestigious as that was not something to be turned down. The Queen Mothers, the only ones capable of carrying on the lines of dragons, trusted only brood carriers with their precious glass-like and scaly eggs, and the task of bringing forth life. Even if brood carriers collectively failed the difficult process to procure living drake and Vyum whelplings most of the time, their station was still an expertise. Their station and expertise was still highly regarded. Station were still highly regarded? Now that there's two things. Their station and expertise was still highly regarded. Furusu's feeling for the incubation process was still exceptional. Oh, still. I don't think we need still here. Furusu's feeling for the incubation process was exceptional, though. There's no reason for it to say still. She had already successfully brought more whelplings to the world than what anyone could hope from one so. She had already successfully brought more whelplings to the world than what anyone could hope. From one so new to the call. Oh, I don't like it. I don't like the sentence. She had already brought more whelplings to the world than what anyone could hope from one so new to the call. Is there a need for a comma? Is that the problem? Could expect or hope from one so new to the call. She had already successfully brought more whelplings to the world than what anyone could expect or hope from one so new to the call. The topaz skin, yeah, I don't know. I feel like it's a bit of a tangly sentence, right? Okay, successfully is probably redundant, right? She already brought more whelplings to the world. That's a success. Bringing whelplings to the world is a success. So why write successfully bring them? She already brought more whelplings to the world than what anyone could expect or hope from one so new to the call. I think it's alright now. I don't know why successfully would be the word. Changes things. This is of course the one. She already brought more whelplings to the world than what anyone could expect or hope from one so new to the call. From one as new as her. From one as new as her. And then, instead of station up here, we can say call. Because I like call. It's like when it's a call, it sounds like it's something higher. It's not just a job. It's not just a position. It's something much bigger than that, right? And I think that goes in line with the fact that dragons are raising up the queen mothers and consorts, those who gives life. They're raising them up. To almost a religious place, I guess you would say. Again, I'm sorry for the hammering and the was it drilling before? Whatever it was. That I'm sure you guys can hear. It is what it is. Okay. Okay, that was that paragraph. It took forever. It's also a long one, but it did take forever. So here we have a comment. Is the valley snowy? With all that said, however, Borusu did find the lands beneath endlessly fascinating. The first time she had visited the settler, she almost decided to stay in the valley where the enormous chains were anchored to the landscape. And right in the middle was the bizarre stone, a large and cold stone that looked so out of place. Borusu remembered thinking that she heard a faint murmur when pressing her earholes against it. That is, until one of the many Topaz Queen's guards told her off. She was only whelping at the time, after all. Okay. So, is the valley snowy? There is a valley, big valley. We are in a Mediterranean climate. We are subtropical climate. I think that's the term. Subtropical climate. Yeah. So like Spain, Italy, subtropical climate. Hot and humid summers, cool to mild winters. When subtropical climate. And then in the middle, dead center of this valley that is directly beneath the floating islands that are the dragon roosts. At dead center, there's a big stone that is out of place. And it's not just out of place, it's so out of place that I think it's changed the landscape. It has made the valley snowy. But only the valley. And then once you go up to the edges of the valley, whatever, mountains, it starts being subtropical. That's my head, and I think we need to say this somehow. So the bizarre stone is of course the settler. I think that makes sense the way we've written it. A large and cold stone that looks so out of place. So how do we say that the valley is snowy? The valley is snowy. How do we say that the valley is snowy? How do we say it while the drilling and sawing not heavy machinery, but machinery is happening? I'm just trying to mask the sound of tools by making my own sound of tools. While also, of course, trying to waste time because I don't have anything. I don't have a solution for what I'm trying to say. I don't have anything to write. I do have something to write, of course. That's why we're here. How could you say that? I was lying. I'm sorry. A large and cold stone that looks so out of place. The first time she had visited. I don't think we need to have had visited. She visited the settler. She had almost decided to stay in the valley where the enormous chains were anchored to the landscape. Looks so out of place. Not only did it look in fact, the settler didn't just look out of place. The valley where it lived so did the valley where it lived with So did the valley where it lived. With snow and freezing cold. Snow and freezing cold. Well, we've ridden with twice. With snow and freezing cold. The contrast was sharp. Contrast was sharp. sharp contrast to the mild weather outside the valley. This is becoming quite the long sentence, isn't it? A sharp contrast to the mild weather. To the mild weather outside. So sound mild weather to the otherwise hot and humid summers and mild winters. So this is a giant sentence. Well, it's very big at least. But maybe that's okay. With all that said, however, Furusu did find the lands endlessly fascinating. The first time she visited the settler, she almost decided to stay in the valley where the enormous chains were anchored to the landscape. And right in the middle was the bizarre stone, a large and cold stone that looked so out of place. In fact, the settler didn't just look out of place. In fact, the settler didn't just look out of place, so did the valley where it lived, with snow and freezing cold, a sharp contrast to the otherwise hot and humid summers and mild winters, with always snow. In fact, the settler didn't just look out of place, so did the valley where it lived, with always snow and freezing cold, a sharp contrast to the otherwise hot and humid summers and mild winters. Okay, yeah, I'm not totally dismissive of this sentence that we just constructed. And right in the middle was the bizarre stone, a large and cold stone that looked so out of place. In fact, the settler didn't just look out of place. And so did the valley where it lived, with always snow and freezing cold, a sharp contrast to the otherwise hot and humid summers and mild winters. Now it's not a long sentence anymore. In fact, the settler wasn't the only thing to look out of place. So did the valley. With always snow and freezing cold, a sharp contrast to the otherwise hot and humid summers and mild winters. So I feel like that this is very nice at establishing that we are in the subtropical Mediterranean like summers or climate. With all that said, however, Vorusu did find the lands beneath endlessly fascinating. The first time she visited the settler, she had visited. Maybe it's fine with the hat. The first time she had visited the settler, she almost decided. I think she had here. The first time she visited the settler, she had almost decided to stay in the valley where the enormous chains were anchored to the landscape. And right in the middle was the bizarre stone, a large and cold stone that looked so out of place. In fact, the settler wasn't the only thing to look out of place. So did the valley where it lived, with always snow and freezing cold. A sharp contrast to the otherwise hot and humid summers and mild winters. Vorusu remembered thinking that she heard a faint murmur when pressing her ear holes against it. Against the stone. Against the stone. That is, until one of the many Topaz Queen's guards told her off. She was only a whelpling at the time, after all. Ooh. Yes, the valley is snowy. Yes. So this comment says snow in the valley. Yes. Check. English version. I cannot spell version the first time round. Oink. Okay. Hey, we're done with page 3. Was that... Where did we start? Was that 2 pages? Let's go. Only 18 to go. It's just gonna be 9 hours. Not a problem at all. Oh. Though I am probably not going to do all 9 hours here on livestream. It was probably a good thing that she didn't stay. The lands and woods were known to house elves, and elves were a black stain on the history of dragons, particularly before they found the dragon roosts. That's a little bit of a problem here. I feel like it looks like we're saying elves were a black stain on the history of dragons, particularly before it sounds like the elves are the ones that found the dragon roost, when it's supposed to be when the dragons found the dragon roosts. And elves were a black stain on the history of dragons, particularly before the finding of the dragon roosts? No, that sounds weird. Before they found the dragon roosts. And she couldn't imagine elves feeling kinder towards her and her kin after how they broke free, if the history books were accurate. Particularly before her ancestors found the dragon roosts. That could work, right? The only problem is that dragons don't really talk about ancestors. I feel like when you talk about ancestors, it's spiritual, especially in a fantasy setting. And dragons are not spiritual. Could say, particularly before the dragonkins found the roosts. Found the floating roosts. Could that work? Could that work? Maybe. Maybe it could. But they weren't dragonkins. Okay, what if we say the lands and woods beneath were known to house elves, and elves were black stain on their history, particularly before the dragons found the roosts, right? That could work. Found the roosts on their history. It was probably a good thing that she didn't stay. The lands and woods beneath... It's probably a good thing that she didn't stay. The lands and woods beneath were known to house elves, and elves were a black stain on their history, particularly before the dragons found the roosts. And she couldn't imagine elves feeling kinder towards her and her kin after how they broke free, if the history books were accurate. If the history books are accurate. They're still there, the history books. Still, Varusu continued to herself, I would not mind having your audacity, little one. She looked to the disappearing chain, as if the flit gecko would somehow still be there. Or have the ability to, the drake said, while looking at her own always relaxed webbed wings. Varusu let out a sigh. Sometimes it seemed like she always ended up here. In this exact spot. Still, Varusu continued to herself, I would not mind having your audacity, little one. She looked to the disappearing chain, as if the flit gecko would somehow still be there. Or have the ability to, the drake said while looking at her own always relaxed webbed wings. Wurusu let out a sigh. Sometimes it seemed like she always ended up here in this exact spot. Okay, that's quite nice. How nice is it that we have a paragraph where almost nothing is wrong? Just need to change a little bit up in the Danish text. Det virker nogle gange til, at hun altid endte her på præcis samme sted ved vinduet. I think. So here I'm adding at the exact same spot by the windows. Vinduerne. Yeah, by the windows. And by spot here, we of course mean literally, but also that she is looking out onto the world, dreaming of it. I think. I don't think that needs to be like explicitly written. I think it's good enough the way it is. The pages in front of her were still blank. Ah! Wurusu screamed as large claws suddenly grabbed onto one of the windows. The claws did so with enough force. Yeah. That needs to be repeated. The force from the claws was enough. The force from the claws was enough to take more chunks off of the melted stone side than what had already been done. Then a large but kind dragon's head, so big that it couldn't fit through the windows themselves, appeared. Ili! By the Queen Mother and all life, what are you doing here? Should you not be back in your cavern? Okay, let me just reread this paragraph. Ah! Wurusu screamed as large claws suddenly grabbed onto one of the windows. The force from the claws was enough to take. The force from the claws was enough to take. The force from the claws was enough to take more chunks off of the melted stone side than what had already been done. This is I'm not sure about this one. The force from the claws was enough to take more chunks off of the melted stone side than what had already been done. Like, it was difficult to read the first time around. That is probably a difficult to read sentence, right? The force from the claws was enough to take more chunks off. To take chunks off of the middle stone side. More than what had already been done. The force from the claws was enough to take chunks off. To take chunks off of the melted stone side. I think it has to be off, even though it's weird. And more than had already been done. Then a large but kind dragon's head, so big that it couldn't fit through the windows themselves, appeared. Ili! By the Queen Mother and all life, what are you doing here? Should you not be back in your cavern? But me no like it there, the weird man said rather shyly, like a whelpling caught doing something they weren't supposed to. And me wanted to see you. You're lucky that we're clutchmates, Ilikasi of Topaz, because other dragons might not take too kindly to our prime Vyum hanging onto the undercliffs of Wingrest at this hour. No one see me. Me make sure, the great dragon responded. I think you will find that no one dared to say anything to you. Stealth is not exactly your strong suit, is it now? Wurusu were half mocking, half scolding Ilikasi's perception of her own size, or lack thereof. The brood carrier could see her clutch sister's expression disheartened, so she quickly followed up to change the subject. The brood carrier could see her clutch sister's expression disheartened. The brood carrier could see her clutch sister's expression. Ooh. Could see the expression of. The brood carrier could see the expression of her clutch sister disheartened, so she quickly followed up to change the subject. Yeah, I think that's better. You spent time with that crazy new learner, did you not? Ilikazi nodded her large head and bared her similarly big, strong, and blade-sharp teeth in a smile that was somehow both innocent and terrifying at the same time. Ilikazi nodded her large head and bared her similar big, strong, and blade-sharp teeth in a smile that was somehow both innocent and terrifying at the same time. I've already told you that you need to stop seeing that Drake. He puts all the wrong ideas into that big head of yours. But me like it, Ilikazi said, dismissing her sister's claim. Me like to read, and me learn much. Only him want me to learn and read and say words. Urusu couldn't make an argument there. Whereas Ryums normally expressed themselves through roars and snarls and breaking of things, her sister had quickly developed a solid vocabulary ever since she started sneaking off to that seemingly headstrong learner. That's a long sentence. But I also think it is alright and important. But that is not your lot, is it? Urusu asked in a tone much more berating than what she intended, and yet she continued. Reading is for drakes, for learners, and members of the Queen's Council to further dragonkind. Ryums are for what? You are training for what? Ilikazi still didn't answer. War, Ili. You are training for war. War and protection. Me no like it. Me no want that training, Ilikazi exclaimed, turning her head away but still holding on to the window. That is not for you to decide. You were hatched as a worm to make our position at Wingrest safe and to deter the other kin from engaging in a new dragon fight. We have never known peace for as long as we have now, ever since dragons arrived here at the roosts. But me no like, I was about to say, is this sentence a weird one? I think we need to make the topaz's position at Wingress safe. Topaz dragons. Yeah. We have never known peace for as long as we have now, ever since the dragons arrived. Ever since the dragons arrived here at the roosts. But me no like it, the behemoth outside the windows repeated. When me read, me forget about all those bad things. Urusu felt terrible. Her clutch sister might be the finest Ryum specimen since the great Musowas. So, of Ruby. Check name and or decide on it, I've written in a comment. I know this particular historic dragon character has at least 3 names that I've been cycling through. And I think this is the one that I'm settling on. It means 3 sons. And this is a male dragon now. They have definitely been female before. But I think Muos Soawas of Ruby is the... This is the name we're going with. This is the name we're going with. Dragon. Rawr. Roar. Yeah. Veruso felt terrible. Her clutch sister might be the finest William specimen. The finest William specimen since the great Muosoavas of Ruby. So I was kind of just thinking here, clutch sister might be the finest specimen of all dragons. Of all dragons. And of all dragons. Veruso felt terrible. Her clutch sister might be the finest Worm specimen of all dragons since the great Muosoas of Ruby almost single-handedly conquered Wingrest for her kin and held it for multiple dragon fights. But in her mind, Irikazi was... But in her own mind, Irikazi was as far from the terrible beasts of war as she could come. This is a 4-line long sentence. Oh my goodness. Almost 4 lines long. Clutch sister, almost single-handed. Yeah, we're going to a full stop there. But, put a but there. Her clutch sister might be the finest Worm specimen of all dragons since the great Muosoavas of Ruby almost single-handedly conquered Wingrest for her kin and held it for multiple dragon fights. But in her own mind, Irikazi was as far from the terrible beasts of war as she could come. Thinking back, Veruso had seldomly seen Irikazi as happy as when she had started to sneak out to that young learner of hers. No one said anything for a while, and the two dragon sisters only shared a few awkward glances. What did you read about? Veruso finally garnered enough courage to ask. Garner. I just need to make sure that garner is actually... Yeah, it is the right word. It means gather. Garner finally gained enough courage to ask. Irikazi quickly turned her head back towards her sister and reaffirmed her strong grip on the window's side. Breaking off a few more stone slabs. Me read from favorite, Veruso gently helped. Favorite book, the eager worm managed to spell out. Me read story about dragon who use fire and wind and earth and stop elves from being bad. Dragons no do that ever, but dragons know no name, so dragons call dragons the savant. Veruso clearly remembered the first time she had read about the mysterious dragon. She probably looked just as excited as her sister did now. Did just now. Did you also know that it was the savant who led us to the settler and the dragon roosts? Free landing was the first roost that the savant and all 6 dragonkin made home. No words came in response. Instead, Ilikazi's maw was wide open, showing all of the terrifying and spiky teeth in astonishment. I guess not. I'm sorry for ruining that for you. No, it okay. Me have question? Go on. I promise that I will try not to spoil another book for you. Boruso smiled and gently patted her sister's snout. Full stop. All dragon, she's not very good at speaking. All dragon live together. No fight? That is right. From what we know, the savant wanted all dragons to live together and protect each other after such a long time in elven serfdom. Serfdom? Ilikazi often repeated words that she didn't know. Slavery. Oh. Why it stop? The Vyum followed up. Boruso could see why her sister's secret learner wanted to spend so much time with her. She was much more engaged than most whelplings being taught this piece of history. The slavery? No. Why dragon stop live together? Why start fighting? Why start fight? Why start fight? I'm afraid we do not know exactly. We only know that the very first dragon fight erupted shortly after the savant died. Learners think it was because 3 loud knocks interrupted the sisters' moment of history. In a sudden slide of panic, Boruso looked towards the wooden door in the crude stone frame, and then quickly back to the Vyum sister. You must go, Willy. No one can find you here. They cannot ignore you being out of your cavern if your big snout is caught sticking in through my windows. And who knows what they'll do to me? Okay, Ilikazi responded. She was a little saddened by their exciting conversation. She was a little saddened that their exciting conversation had come to an end so soon, but she also knew where her room was supposed to be at this hour. Good night, Woo-Woo, the gentle beast said as she let go of the window. In contrast to her own pet name, Ilikazi had never really learned to say her sister's full name, though not for lack of trying. Good night, Ili. Good night, Ili, Boruso answered back with a slightly frantic tone. Me love you. The brood carrier looked to the door, which was on the receiving end of another barrage of knocks. I love you too, Boruso managed to respond with a strange mix of yelling and whisper at the Vyum who started to flap her mighty wings. Okay, I think that's going to be where we'll stop the revision for today. And then we will continue this tomorrow. Live, of course. I might do some revision on my own later today. Or I might go translating. I feel like there were a couple of paragraphs that were a bit of a snag that we hit, but we got over them. And especially now where they're talking, that was just a breeze to read. Wow, alright. Yeah, a breeze to read. So I hope that you guys will join me tomorrow for another book revision session. Live, of course, as today, and the bit that we tried yesterday. And next week, this fly should be done and published, and we can start on some 1-minute stories before we move on to the next big short story of my fantasy universe, Forgotten Songs. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you like this, please remember to like and subscribe. It really means a lot. Maybe even share it if you want with all your bookworm friends, book nerds, just like me. And yeah, I'll see you tomorrow. The journey continues. Bye!